This is the last 5 chapters of the Drum Island arc. Let's do it. Chapter 150. Royal Drum Crown 7-shot Tin Tyrant Cannon. Wow. Walpole has vanished. No one knows where he is. Well, he's run inside. And as we come to find out, he's run inside to get some weapons to eat, basically. But before he can attempt to do that, he runs into Nami, who is trying to escape her recovery. It's not a prison cell, but her recovery room, basically. And Walpole encounters her and chases her and gets stuck because he's fat and decides to say Walpole slim down or something, and he gets skinny and svelte. So that's fun. I wish I could do that. That, at least that simply can be done. Just not quite that simply, right? Luffy punches him out in the process. Walpole gets to the door that he wants to open and realizes he doesn't have the key. He doesn't know where it is. And normally he would have it on him, I guess, and he doesn't. And so he runs off and runs up. And we find out Nami actually has the key. I guess she stole it from him. He runs up to the title of the chapter, The Royal Drum Crown 7-shot Tin Tyrant Cannon, the ultimate weapon of Drum Kingdom. And he tries to fire it, and nothing happens, and a nest of snowbirds walks out of the cannon. Luffy and Walpole end up fighting. Meanwhile, Chopper is reflecting on that Luffy called him his friend. That's the end of the chapter. Chapter 151, The Skies of Drum. Yeah. We finally see this ropeway that apparently is tied to Dr. Kuriha's old house, which is a tree. I think we saw that in the flashbacks before, but this time there's a ropeway from her tree up to the castle. And they're riding some kind of cart or I forget what you would call it, like gondola thing up the ropeway. And they got a ton of people in it, so it's going slow. And we got Dalton flashing back through all the reasons why he hates Walpole and why he feels like he needs to go make sure Walpole's gotten rid of. Back up the mountain at the top of the castle, Luffy and Walpole are still fighting. There are baby snowbirds now exiting the cannon. Loophole and Waffy. Nice. Luffy and Walpole fight. Walpole has a cool tongue cannon that comes out of his stretched wide open mouth that Luffy's like keeping back with his stretched out fingers. The tongue cannon goes off and there's an explosion at the top. We see Dalton still reflecting about everything that happened to him, and he says something like, "What's so wrong about wanting your country to have a heart?" Vivi gasps at either that or him. I think she gasps at that, but then he reveals like all these explosives Dalton does that he has on, some dynamite that he has on. We're back at Walpole and Luffy still fighting. Luffy's pretty much kicking the crap out of him and shoots him up to the top of the peak of the room they're in, and he's sticking out the top of that and having to look at the pirate flag that's on the other peak of the castle. And so we go through the pirate flag stuff again. If you're not willing to put your life on the line, then don't ever touch the skull and crossbones. And Luffy like revs up some crazy gum bazooka. That's the end of that chapter, and it looks like Walpole got sent yet again. He likes getting sent, I guess. Chapter 152, Full Moon. The gondola reaches its destination. I think it's Zoro and Zolo and Usopp go to check on what's going on, and they are promptly attacked by Luffy, who thinks that they're a couple of Walpole's men at first, but then he realizes they're not, so that doesn't really go anywhere. But everyone's fine. They tell Luffy about the ropeway, and we find out that Luffy already kicked the king's butt, and that the thing that flew across the sky was Walpole. Dalton recognizes Tony Chopper from the past. He basically bows down to say thank you. All of the people who haven't seen Tony Chopper yet, maybe I don't know about all of them, but certainly Usopp anyway, but it's more than just him, immediately see Tony Chopper as a monster and freak out. Tony Chopper makes a run for it, and Luffy's chasing him to try to get him to join is what he's doing. Dr. Kuriha shows up and throws catches Nami trying to escape and grabs her and Sanji and throws them in the infirmary to recover, and puts Dalton there too, although I don't think she had to force him. Then we find out what Dr. Kureha wants to charge them, which is everything on their ship for her services, but she happens to want to get into that armory that Walpole was trying to get into also. And Nami has the keys, so Nami pays for their services with that key. Is told not to leave, but is basically told how to leave anyway. Dr. Kureha is very mean on the outside and kind on the inside, as we continue to see over and over again. Yes, so Luffy catches up with Tony Chopper and asks him to be a pirate. Tony Chopper doesn't think he can be because he's a reindeer. And he goes for all these reasons and all his issues and trauma, etc. And Luffy's answer to that is just shut up and come with us, which apparently is enough. Everyone's on board with this. It's enough to convince him, apparently. And that's the end of the chapter. Chapter 153. Hurlock's Cherry Blossoms, right? Finally, we're going to get back to the resolution, or the cure-all, or the thing, the life's work of Dr. Hurlock. So with Walpole dealt with and Tony Chopper deciding to go with them, we get everyone sort of preparing to leave. And then Tony Chopper goes to the doctor to let her know that he's going to go with them. And she's like, no, don't talk nonsense. And appears to try to convince him to stay and push him to stay and not be okay with him leaving. Whoever heard of a seagoing reindeer? And Tony Chopper's like, I'm a man too. And she's like, and basically he runs out of there, and she chases him and throws knives and crap at him, but ultimately lets him go. He grabs the sleigh, he goes into reindeer mode, gets everyone in the sleigh, and they fly down the mountain, basically. We end up realizing that Dr. Kureha did it this way so it wouldn't be a hard, tearful goodbye. Chased him off. Kind of like Dr. Hurlock's strategy, too, in a way. I don't know about these. It's easier if there's conflict rather than sadness or something. But I don't know. That's an interesting, it's easier to leave if you're that resolved about it. And it's faster, right? It's like ripping off the Band-Aid, essentially. In the meantime, Dr. Kureha was setting up all these cannons, and she pulls out the pouch from Dr. Hurlock to go with whatever they're shooting out of the cannons. And what it does is it blasts this powder into the atmosphere, which causes a reaction to change the snow pink. So there's the appearance of cherry blossoms falling, but in snow form. And this was Dr. Hurlock's reaction that he had finally got. So that all makes sense now. It's not really what I thought it would be, but effectively it's a very similar thing. It's clever. So everybody sees the snow. In the black and white page, you can't really tell. It would be cool. I should go go read the colorized version of this chapter, because I bet it would be even more effective that way. It's a good resolution to the backstory here for sure, and kind of a good way to send off Tony Chopper into the next step of its life, right? So, and that's the end of the chapter, is seeing that pink snow. So, final chapter of the Drum Island arc, chapter 154, on to Arabasta. So the pink snow is still falling as they sail away. They kind of hint at that the Drum Island is going to be reborn and reinvented, and who knows, maybe they'll come back to that. But as the manga says here, that's a story for another time. We also get a little moment where someone brings up Luffy's wanted poster to Dr. Kureha and Dalton. Someone had come into town with this poster, wondering if they had seen Luffy. He tells them that if they do, to tell him he'll be waiting for him in Arabasta for 10 days. And they ask him his name. He says his name's Ace. And they decide, well, it's okay we didn't give him the message, because they're headed to Arabasta anyway. I don't know about the time frame necessarily, but I suppose that's possible. The other thing that that happens here. It's a little subtle, but she sees Luffy's full name on that poster. And she knew someone once called Gold D. Roger. And I think it's Dalton who says, "You mean Gold Roger? Everyone knows who Gold Roger is." Oh, that's what they call him now. Luffy's name is Monkey D. Luffy. And so she's making some kind of comparison and references something called the Will of D, which I have a guess about, but I don't actually know exactly what that means or who it's related to. Obviously, it's connecting Luffy and Gold Roger in some way. And I'm not going to say more than that right now, because I do have a thought that's related to another character and a spoiler that I had seen. If those things are connected to each other, I don't know that yet, and I'm not going to go find out. And it'll be more fun to just see it on my own. And then if it's not that, it'll just be something else. But that's a very important moment at the end of the arc here, obviously. We find that Karoo, the duckbird thingamabobber, I think they call him Duck sometimes. I thought they called him Bird sometimes. I don't know. But Karoo is his actual name, and he quacks, and he's big. And he had apparently gotten frozen in the river because he went after Zolo when he went for his swim, and Karoo got frozen in the river when he lost track of Zoro on his swim or something. So I'm sure they just needed to shore this up and make sure you know that Karoo's still alive, still with us, and this is what happened to him. So we get a bunch of scenes with Tony Chopper getting used to the crew, having a good experience there, realizing he left his stuff, but then he's got his bag of stuff, and that Dr. Kuriha must have packed it for him. So he realizes she knew what was going to happen and wanted him to go, and that was all kind of a show to make it easier. Yeah, you get this very silly scene of them basically drinking and being silly and putting chopsticks in the bottom of their lips and up their nose. I guess that's probably a thing, some kind of a silly drinking game or something, right? We also flash back to Little Garden Island, and we meet Bon Clay, Mr. 2. He had been sent to take care of Mr. 3 in between Little Garden and Arabasta, and he made his way all the way from Arabasta to Little Garden and didn't find him. So now they're turning around and he's basically got to find Mr. 3 and take care of him in order to preserve his own life, essentially. This is obviously setting up Mr. Number 2 here, probably running into Luffy and company, since they're on their way to Arabasta again. So that's a possibility. Or coming in right behind them or something like that, right? Then we cut to Crocodile, I guess, or Mr. 1, number 1. Yeah, briefly. Just get a little hint, a reminder kind of the bigger picture, I suppose. And that's the end of the Drum Island arc. Get a little moment of Tony Chopper's Rumble thing, too. So, next video, we're going to start the Arabasta arc. Let's do it.